So this is Eric from IONCINEMA.com at the 2024 Marrakech Film Festival. I'm talking to Damian Kocur, and Under the Volcano is one of the competition films. I saw this at TIFF. Like I had just mentioned, it drew me in and knocked me out. I was really surprised. I thought that your sophomore feature was my first introduction to your work, having not seen your debut feature. However, I did see your short film in competition in Cannes. So my idea is that you began with a text about displacement during this specific time in history, and that you perhaps had more to say about it. You wanted to tackle it from a different angle. Is that the case? And a second question to that is, Sofiia Berezovska was a vessel in one story. Did you at that point, at that juncture, said, "Oh, I'm not finished with you professionally, creatively"?
No, when I was making this casting for Under the Volcano, I've been looking also for this teenage girl, and after a couple of weeks I just realized that I did the short film with Sofiia, and she's exactly that age I'm looking for.
Yes.
And I can remember her presence, her I wouldn't say it was acting, it was just her presence, undisturbed from all the patterns, acting patterns presence. So I didn't have to make any other next take just to make her acting differently. She was perfect all the time. So I said, yeah, I'm gonna take her because she's gonna be super good in that film. And I have to say that I'm always trying to, maybe I'm not trying, it's just happening, it just happens that my writing process is simultaneous to the casting process. Mm-hmm. So I'm working mainly with non-professionals. In that case, in Under the Volcano, I had 2 professional actors, the parents, because I don't know as many Ukrainians I would like to, because I'm not living in Ukraine. Mm-hmm. So it was hard for me to cast non-professionals for that role, and they were also kind of demanding. But this casting process affected my script a lot. I changed the plot because Anastasiia Karpienko looked so physically different to Sofiia that they couldn't be like mom and daughter. So I made a stepmom out from her. Yeah. Because of that.
And it's something that I didn't want to bring up during this interview, because as a viewer, when the narrative progression is occurring and I'm looking at the relationship dynamics, I'm thinking, oh, okay, it's not what I thought it was, that family structure, that quartet. But still a fascinating choice, because you put yourself in I don't want to say in a difficult situation, but the moment that you choose her, you do have to make concessions or alterations to the screenplay.
But I think the life is always better than our ideas. Mm-hmm. And especially if you're working with non-professionals, and I'm trying to use their own experience. I mean, their experience was the war, not the displacement also, but they never left country. I had to bring them from Ukraine. Mm-hmm. So that's why you can see the panic attack in Sofiia in the last scene with the fireworks. We didn't really expect that to happen, because we forgot, and she forgot that she had this PTSD after Kiev bombing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so I used so much of her stories. The friend she was talking to on the phone is her real friend. And Roman's stories about his first girlfriend, and that's his stories. That's his real stories. So I'm trying to always to combine people really experience with my fiction.
That's a nice fusion or infusion.
But I'm not the first one who was doing that.
No, of course not.
Kiarostami was doing it.
Yes. There's something to be said about not being in a place called home, and then wanting to go back to the place on some perhaps non-intellectual manner. It's almost as if they're missing out on something that a collective experience that they need to go back to, that they're feeling it from a different vantage point. I thought that was really interesting. I wrote down massive collective damage to the psyche of a community that's occurring, and they're not part of it. And so at the onset, you're thinking, well, yeah, you guys are in a safe zone, you're lucky, but that's not how they're experiencing it. So I just wanted to get a sense of, like, is there a lot of truth to what I just said there about them missing out on something where they shouldn't be missing out?
I think that was a many experience of many Ukrainians. I made like a long research. I was talking to many people that were like exactly in the same situation. So many scenes in my film are inspired by not only what I saw and what I personally went through during the first days of the war, but also like people's stories, you know. Like the need to, like there was one girl that was saying me that, you know, she was spending the vacation in Spain with her boyfriend, and she was like kind of hoping that once he will say that he wants to go back.
Yeah.
And she was so pissed off at him that he's not saying it. She was innerly demanding it from him. But in the moment he said like, yes, okay, I'm going back, she got like really afraid. She got really scared because it became like a part of, it could become like a part of the reality.
Yes.
As long as it wasn't like possible.
Yeah.
Because they were far from Ukraine. She could like just having this kind of, she was developing the kind of toxicity.
Yeah.
Toxicity,
Yeah.
like in the relationship there. So yeah, and it's you know, I as a Pole, I was in I wouldn't say this was the same story. It was the same situation, but kind of like emotionally, I felt the same. Like I was in a safe position. I was in a safe place. My heart was with those people, even though they were not my family, but they were like I have some like friends there still living. And I just combined those two emotions, like I think the feeling of guiltness,
Yeah.
and the helplessness, you know.
I was in Buenos Aires this year, and I met 3 strands of people coming from that region. There was Ukrainian refugees, there was Russian refugees, and then there was Russian tourists on vacation. Different levels of guilt or perhaps non-guilt. So you re-team with Marta.
Konarzewska.
Thank you. There's a lot of non-verbal written into this film. And I love how you constructed this quartet of people who are dealing with grief, and they're crashing up against other people around them. So I was relating it back to that moment where I'm meeting these different strands of people that are displaced because of this war, on purpose or not on purpose. So I imagine you had access to that in order to sort of like dress the players that surround your characters in order to have those weird dynamics. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, of course. But I think I would say it's not just about the displacement because of the war. Or I think all of us we went through that kind of state, being among people and not feel like connected and feel lonely. And for me, it's more about the loneliness in that particular moment, you know. And there was like a moment then Anastasiia is screaming at those Russians, and somebody from the guest saying like, "You are not alone here."
Yeah.
They're fucking alone.
Yeah.
You know? They are just alone.
Yes.
So, and I think it's about every day we're going to the same. I mean, like being in like traveling with the film and being among all those people in the festival, and then going to the streets. You see such a different world. And people are being lonely also because of the economical situation, because of the capitalism, you know. And this is like different. This is a different version of being lonely, and the reason of being lonely. But I think you don't have to be the victim of the war and refugee. You can sit to the person next to you, and that could be also like kind of like this inner displacement because of different reasons.
There's one choice moment in the film I thought was brilliant, is when he says to the guy selling an item, he says, "Oh, your friend tried to sell something on me," and it just shows like You know, once you flip the switch, the same thing
I
is.
catch myself like almost saying it many times.
Yeah.
You know? And everybody did that.
Wait, it's a wake-up call.
Yes, yes.
Like spend a moment in somebody else's shoes before making.
I just realized because some people and some Ukrainians are saying, you know, you should concentrate more on our story. Why did you add this immigrants from Africa stories? And I said, guys, but this is the part of this kind of island, you know, this is the part of touristic life.
Yes.
The people are among us, we don't see them, and in one moment we are among other people that don't see us.
Yes,
you know?
yes.
And people cannot really understand it, and they said that it's like the parallel, it's maybe too...
In your face?
Yes.
Too in your face.
Yes, but I'm trying to be, you know, if I see something, I mean like, I covered so many things in that film.
Yeah.
In terms of like the framing, you know, I was trying to suggest more than expose.
Yeah.
But in that particular case, I said like, okay, I have to show the white Europeans, you know, that we can be part of this kind of refugee displacement work. We never know when. You know?
And we never give a second thought to like, you know, critical matters. You know, we go to Greece to vacation, but it's a crazy zone.
Yeah, I was inspired by one girl's sentence that a Ukrainian that was telling me the story with the guy when they were spending the vacation in Spain. That she said like, I would never think that over a night I would
be a refugee.
Become refugee.
Yeah.
You know? The next day we woke up and we were like fucking refugees. You know, we were like sitting on the phone scrolling. I ate everything I had in my backpack. So I just realized that, and it was the same thing that Mike told me when I asked him why the people are dying on boats, and he said because they're eating and drinking everything they have, because they're so excited and they feel the fear.
Yeah.
And then after like a couple of days they realize they have nothing more to eat, nothing more to drink. That's why the people are dying.
Yeah.
And this Ukrainian girl told me almost the same story, you know. They were like in a completely different place because they were among people in Spain, in Barcelona or something.
Yes,
you know?
And somebody's making their bed in the morning. It's crazy. But I thought it was a really interesting, critical, extra voice that you brought to...
But you think it was like too much in...
Not at all. I wanted that. I'm happy that that moment exists.
Because I was thinking, we were really thinking with my co-writer and editor if we should use that singing scene at the end of the film as an epilogue, you know. And I said, I'm gonna make it like, I want to make it more universal maybe because of that. I don't want to make this film about the war. Because the war will end, hopefully soon.
Yes.
Nobody will remember that, as we know.
Yeah, we have amnesia, collective amnesia.
Yes, very, very fast, you know. And then it will make it more like maybe universal. And sometimes I'm just like, you know, going with my I would say intuition, then more than with my intellectual like.
I don't see anybody talking about Bosnia or Yugoslavia, and that happened yesterday. You make a very specific strategic delineation between the foreground, the adults, and the background where the kids are. In a given shot, you might blur out the parents, ultimately keep the focus on Sofiia, her brother. It's almost as if you're feeling the temperature in the room, and she's got this ability to have deep listening. She's very much an insular person, but she's also a teen, which is normal to some extent.
She's very mature.
She's very mature, and she's also, without giving away too much of the quartet plot, is that she's forced to adopt another role. She's not only a sister, but she ends up being a parent. Yeah. So I wanted to get a sense of that distinct visual choice where we're in a room and you zone into her just with the camera focus. At what juncture did you decide that would be part of the blueprint of your film? Was this at the writing phase, or this is something that she had conceptualized the moment that you did cast her?
Yeah, that was the moment I cast her, and I think I made like the film is much less rigorous than my first fiction, because in my first film I was like keeping the camera fixed, you know, and like everything was framed very precisely.
Yes.
And I didn't make like reverse shots, almost never. And then I never used the handheld camera. So in that case I said, okay, this is a different story and it's a different form. There's a family, there's vacation. It's a completely different story. So I have to change the language. So that's why we decided with Nikita Kuzmenko, my DP, that we're gonna excuse me, use the handheld camera, but we're gonna make some decisions in terms of how we're showing this Sofiia, you know?
Yeah.
To just to be more with her, because it's not about how long she is in the frame, for how many minutes. It's about how we looking at her also, you know.
There's this great sequence when they're at a tourist center. There's a map on a counter, and we're seeing it from the point of view of the guy writing down all these instructions. And what occurred to me is that, as an audience member, is that
this is from their point of view.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating how there's like this disconnection that occurs when your mind is not in it, but you visually remind us that we're in a beautiful setting, and yet I felt as disconnected as your players. I felt as if like, who cares about all this? Who cares about the beauty that's around us? And in a sense, we reject beauty when we're living through trauma. And I thought that was a very conscious choice for you to sort of like transmit that. Obviously, I'm living it from one aspect, but is there some truth to what I'm saying here? And like some of those, the camera angle choices, or even the sequences where yeah, we're actively rejecting.
We're gonna make it like actively, but I think we make it like passive, like that we're rejecting the beautiful of the reality and those traumatic moments, you know. I mean, like if you look at the history of wars, they will always happen in these beautiful places, you know.
Vietnam.
The war changed the landscape for sure.
Yeah.
But look at the Ukraine. They have like a really beautiful like landscape, like amazing soil, you know. And, but it looks now like a moon, you know, after the artillery, after the shelling, bombing. So yeah, but I think you know, I think it's my own experience of feeling lonely in the places where people are having fun. You don't have to be like a refugee. You don't have to be displaced to feel that. It's like because they were in a kind of depressive state, which is making you not like controlling your thought, your feelings, your feelings, the way you communicate with relatives, you know. And I think, yeah, I was trying to make the film about the tension which is growing between them, but at the same time they are trying to be still the family, you know, because they have to keep together, you know. But I had so many ideas how to show it, but I decided, I think I made it after like this half a year of after making that film. I'm still thinking if it was a good decision, because some people need to I mean, people like are used to the cinema that is nowadays, that is showing so much, and for me too much, you know. I mean, many directors are bringing the audience on the hand and they are showing them everything.
Yeah. But
I don't want to expose so much, you know.
But I think, from what I understand, is your cinema will forever be confrontational to some extent. You want to have a conversation.
Yes, you need to leave the space for the viewers, and if there is somebody that leaves the cinema without any thoughts and emotions, you know.
What's the point?
I'm not gonna say which American movie I just watched in Poland, but it was, I wouldn't say, I mean, like, it was like a well-made movie, but everything was told, and I went through all the emotions during the screening. I left the cinema, and after 5 minutes, nothing. You're on to the next thing. Yeah.
So you were shot out of the film canon with Bread and Salt, special jury prize winning film in the Horizonte program in 2022. So now we're at 3 films technically in 3 years. You're on a pace where you're on a rapid pace.
Let's say 3. Let's say
3 and 4. Or
no, let's say 2, because the short film I wouldn't consider to be.
I consider it a film. I mean,
I made it very quickly. We made it like 5 person, and in 1 week we wrote the script in about like 2 days. you know.
Sure, but then it has
that.
to be submitted to a festival, and then it gets into Cannes competition. I mean, like it's a big deal. So I just wanted to get a sense of like, from what I gather, is that you deal with raw, real emotions. Is that what informs your future texts? I mean, I don't want to ask you necessarily what you're working on next, but what are you drawn to in the human experience that you want to put this into film, and maybe there's themes or ideas that you want to explore next? Like, I'm trying to get a sense of who Damian is outside of this stuff.
I mean, my next project, I got finally the financing.
Congratulations.
Thank you, but I was waiting for that 2 years. I wrote the script exactly 2 years ago, and the film was rejected it was censored by the previous government in Poland from the far right.
Yeah.
And now I got the money, so I'm gonna start working on that film. I already started working on it, on the casting, because I'm gonna make that film in this rural places close to this Belarusian border.
Okay.
It's gonna be also with this immigration crisis in the background, but it's not gonna be another green border of like Agnieszka.
Yes.
It's gonna be like completely different movie. And so I think the refugee crisis, the immigration, the huge movement of people around the world, that's the part of our world and the reality. So I think I'm gonna focus on the things, and I think which are like important in my.
I hear you. Well, congratulations on from IONCINEMA.com. If you want to support us, subscribe below. For more reviews, interviews, film festival coverage from Sundance, Cannes, Toronto, you want to check out these guys on this side.